talk about some exciting developments in our neighborhood. Tonight's meeting is going to be a high-level meeting to kind of talk through some important historic housing developments within our community, as well as talk about some meeting plans we've got after the new year to really focus on Broadway, commercial housing developments, housing developments, infrastructure, to really kind of work on making Broadway the main street that we want it to be. I want to first kind of go over a little bit of what we're going to do tonight. Tonight, we are going to, I'm going to make a presentation. I'm joined by Bickerdike and Joy Argueta, who is the CEO of Bickerdike, to talk about a new housing development plan for the Ward Yard on 5853 North Broadway. We're going to talk about some meetings that we've got planned for the new year to really look at Broadway and come up with a holistic plan that addresses infrastructure, housing, commercial development, and really plans for the future. Tonight, what we're going to do is people are welcome to put comments, questions into the chat box, but what I'd like to respectfully ask everyone to do is to hold your questions till after the presentation. We're going to try to make tonight feel as much as like an in-person meeting as we can. And what we're going to do is allow people to ask their questions via the raise your hand function. So respectfully ask everyone to wait until the presentation's done, and then we will go through and answer as many questions in person tonight as possible. Tonight is an initial meeting, so it's to try to give everyone a framework of some important things that are going on and really kind of set the table for the new year and some work that we can really do together as a community. So with that, let's get started. Tonight, we're going to talk about the development on North Broadway at the 5853 North Broadway current city Ward Yard. We're going to talk about Broadway, kind of how it's developed over the course of the last 10, 15 years, and really where we want to take it. And what we want to do is really, in the new year, January, February, March, really bring everyone together, all the voices in the community and stakeholders, to really kind of plan out how we envision Broadway in the Edgewater section of our community for the next 5 to 10 years together. So we're going to kind of talk a little about some of these developments and kind of where we have come from and where we're going, and also kind of what we're planning for the new year. So with that, let's talk about Broadway for a minute. You know, Broadway is our main street, with the exception of Andersonville and Clark Street. But it's been the cornerstone of our neighborhood. And for the last 10, 15 years, we've really tried to work to improve it for our neighbors. And that improvement includes improved infrastructure physically on the streets. It includes increasing and supporting small businesses that have grown. And even while we're in the COVID pandemic that we've been in, we have started to see a resurgence in small businesses. Broadway abuts the Red Line, and kind of going back to when our community started many, many years ago, the small businesses kind of built around Broadway and the Red Line. But increasingly also, we acknowledge that it's important to slow traffic down. If Alan can go back a slide, or actually, you got it. We want to make sure that Broadway is safe for people, and that there's a reality that a lot of folks from Evanston and Rogers Park and points beyond use Broadway every day to travel to Lakeshore Drive. And we have done our efforts to try to slow things down with speed indicator cameras, with infrastructure around Broadway and Devon, to really try to convey the message that you're in a neighborhood and we want it to be slow. So that's something that is an ongoing process that we work on constantly. Additionally, we also understand that traffic and traffic volume on Sheridan Road at Broadway are interconnected, and that businesses are impacted by traffic flow, parking, and all of those things. But collectively, we've done a lot of work and effort to really try to slow Broadway down. Additionally, on the southern end of our ward in the Uptown area, there's been increased development along Broadway. The Aon building has been renovated to a new housing building. There's a new building that's being built on the east side of the street at Winona and Broadway. Timeline Theater is coming to that area in the years to come. So there's been a lot of development in that part of our community. And I think, quite frankly, there's been development north of Foster, but it's been in a few places. So what we really want to look at is what are the opportunities for our community when it comes to development, and just acknowledging the housing stock that we have and what's possible, which leads us really to kind of where we want to go. So moving forward, Broadway presents us with a lot of different, I'll call them positive opportunities. And I think, Alan, if we can go to the slide, what's to come? There's a lot of things that have been going on along Broadway, but part of what we want to talk about tonight, part of what we want to talk about in the new year is how do we see Broadway in the future for our community that best supports the needs of our neighborhood and what's possible. And specifically when it comes to housing, but a couple things that are in the process now that all of us are aware about, and part of it is how do we build for the future and how do we plan for the future. The first is we are going through a historic renovation of the CTA, the red purple modernization, which has been going on for a year and a half now, and is going to continue for another 3 or 4 years. For all the CTA riders and for all the residents who live along Kenmore, Winthrop, I want to thank you for your patience. I know it's been a very difficult process, but it's a historic process. The red line in our community is over 100 years old. When the CTA renovation is done, from Hollywood South, we're going to have a brand new rail line, brand new stations with elevators, escalators, totally accessible. What that means is it's going to also create development opportunities around the CTA stations and specifically on Broadway. The other thing that is important that is in the process is that the city has undertaken for a number of years to really look at Lakeshore Drive and traffic flow on Lakeshore Drive, but also specifically when the traffic ends in our community. And there's been a lot of work that's gone on to really look at different options as it deals with traffic on Broadway and on Sheridan Road. And there's been a lot of work that had gone on pre-COVID, but we're trying to pick up the baton, so to speak, and really kind of carry that through. The other two things that are always critical for our neighborhood is one is economic development and really increasing economic development along Broadway. That's something that we've worked on for many years. I think over the last 10 years, if you look at the amount of restaurants that are having outdoor cafes, it's really created a different vibrancy on the street. We brought in a lot of good businesses, but we really want to make sure that we're taking full advantage and looking for more ways to bring new businesses in. I really want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, the Edgewater Chamber of Commerce, and Christina and her team. Even as we're in the process of rebounding from COVID, we're beginning to open new businesses up. And I think that's a really critical aspect because that creates jobs in our community and it creates vibrancy. And we really want to continue that. And then the other key thing for Broadway that I really look as an opportunity that's a desperate need is we have the ability to create additional housing along Broadway. And Broadway has different dynamics on either side of the street. Some of it is built up where there's not a lot of housing opportunities, but on the east side of Broadway, we're going to get into some of these locations tonight, and we're going to talk about it more in detail in the new year. There's really opportunities to add housing and add density in a way that will work for our community, and also more specifically for me, add affordable units. And I think that I would really want to say, as a lifelong resident of Edgewater and someone who wants to keep Edgewater in the 48th Ward a diverse community with people from every background, every income level, every race, that it's critical that we're providing affordable housing. And Broadway, I think, gives us some opportunities. This is something that we've been working on for a number of years, going back to redoing the ADU ordinance to try to add more affordable dwelling units, working with developers who come to our community to add ARO units, which is the affordable rental ordinance, which has recently been changed. But in the past, when developers wanted to come to our neighborhood, we really tried to focus to make sure they put units on site. And in the past, there have been folks who didn't want to do that, but I really tried to focus and persuade folks to do that. And we've created over 122 units of affordable housing in our community in the last 10 years. But the reality is that that's not enough. And I think the other thing that is a reality is that our community has not had a lot of new development that's focused on family size units. So part of what I really want to focus on is to really add more affordable family size units where young families have the ability to stay in our community, send their kids to our local grade schools, and really be a part of the fabric of our neighborhood and not have to leave. The meeting we have tonight is also follows a meeting we had in the zoning committee today, where for the first time there's going to be affordable units on the northwest side of Chicago as a way to grow affordable units across the city. But I really want to do it for the folks who live in our neighborhood, residents that are longtime residents who want to stay here, and young families who want to be a part of our neighborhood. So going into a number of the units or buildings that we're going to talk about in the new year and a little bit tonight is a week and a half ago, Mayor Lightfoot announced over $100 million in affordable housing tax credits. And one of the developments that was given funding, tax credit funding for that is in the early phases of conversation, and we will have more conversation about that, is in the south end of our ward in Uptown near Gowdy School is the Vietnamese Association of Illinois parking lot, which is just off of Argyle Street. It's a large surface parking lot that's been owned by VAI for, I believe, over 30 years. VAI has been working with a real estate development group related. So they are in the beginning phases of adding a building there that would be over 70 units, affordable, that would retain some parking for residents and businesses along Argyle Street. But it's important that we're talking about doing some of these larger developments and that they're going to be focused on different sides of our neighborhood. So that's a development that we're going to be talking more about, and we'll be working with VAI and their development team. It's a ways off, so I don't want to increase expectation that it's going to be done tomorrow, but we're going to begin conversations about that, and that'll be an important improvement and asset for families in the uptown part of our community. I want to start now to talk about the 53 building, the Broadway Ward Yard. And data from Bickerdike Development. The city in the last few years has been looking at their physical assets and beginning to sell some of them because, quite frankly, the city needs funding. Additionally, there has been the acknowledgement that we need more affordable housing units in our community, as well as having more family size units. That has led me to look for lots of different options in any way I can. And part of the challenge in our community is that we're a built up neighborhood in many regards. So there's not a lot of land that we can use for development opportunities. But one of the opportunities that presented itself and that I really thought would be a positive for our community was looking at the ward yard along Broadway, very near to the Broadway Armory. Broadway Armory is our neighborhood community center. The Streets and Sanitation Ward Yard has been a functional part of our neighborhood for many, many decades. One of the things about Streets and Sanitation is over the last 10 years, a lot of the garbage collection has gone from a ward-based garbage collection to a grid system. So the opportunity presented itself, or became apparent to me that this was something that we can get in front of and bring a development to our community that we can be proud of, instead of something that was a market rate development where we're reacting to someone from the outside saying they want to buy an asset from the city. I became familiar with Bickerdike Development from the work that they did in the city of Chicago, specifically with the Emmett Street project in Logan Square, where they brought a 100% affordable housing unit building to that community. And I think my work with the housing, as the housing committee chairman, as a member of the zoning committee, as a member of the plan commission, was very impressed by Bickerdike and the work that they've done around the city, specifically with Emmett Street, and thought that they would be a good partner to bring 100% affordable building to our neighborhood. A building that's got a mix of units with the majority of 2s and 3 bedrooms, that would have parking, but that would be 100% affordable, so that residents in our community could take advantage of that affordability. So we have been in conversation with them for a number of months, in conversation with the city of Chicago for a number of months, and that has led us to the negotiated sale process, which Bickerdike has begun with the city of Chicago, that would lead to the acquisition of the site, and with a multi-layer of funding that would come from government funds and other funds, would lead to a 100% affordable building that would be roughly 13 stories, and that would have a mix of units, but it would be over 80 plus units of housing, with the majority of those units being 2s and 3 bedroom. Joy is going to kind of get into her vision of what was possible at this location and talk about the income levels. But I think the income levels that we're looking at are in the area of 50 to 60% AMI. A lot of this is initial, and a lot of this is going to be part of a community process. It's important to note that because this is a negotiated sale, there will be a negotiated sale process that will be moving through the city. There will be a zoning change that will be needed for this site. It will include a planned development that will have to go through the zoning committee. There will be TIF funding that will be brought to use for this project to help fund it, that will go through the finance committee. All of that said, there will be a lot of community input and feedback on this project. But let me say, as a lifelong resident of the community and an alderman for 10 years, I believe strongly in this project. I think that this will be an asset to our community. It'll be a solid development that will really provide needed housing for our community, and really, I think, help with the vision on Broadway as we look at other developments. So with that, I would like at this point to turn it over to Joy Argueta, from the CEO of Bickerdike Development, to make a presentation, and then we're going to talk about a number of other parcels along Broadway and some meetings that we have planned for the new year, and then we'll open it up for questions. So with that, Joy, welcome to Edgewater and the 48th Ward in Uptown. And I will also say, for the neighbors on the call, is that Bickerdike is an organization recently expanded its boundaries to come to our community and communities along the northeast side of Chicago. So want to welcome Joy, and Alan will cue Joy up.
Am I good? Okay, good.
You're good.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Joy Argueta. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Bickerdike Redevelopment Corporation, and where I've been the CEO for the last 26 years. And so just a little bit about Bickerdike for those who might not know us. We're a 26-year-old, we're a 54-year-old not-for-profit community development corporation, and which is a member-driven organization. And we've developed over 2,000 affordable for-sale homes and apartments for families over our 54-year history. We manage a rental portfolio of over 1,200 affordable family apartments in 140 buildings. And our mission is, if I had to say it in just a few words, would be community development by and for the benefit of community residents. And we carry out our model of community development with significant engagement of the community as part of that process. And we would not see any change in either our mission or how we do our work in how we would carry out this project. And so until recently, as the Alderman said, we primarily worked in the areas of Westtown, Humboldt Park, Logan Square, Hermosa, Avondale, and some surrounding communities to those. This year, after identifying it as a priority in our strategic plans for about 15 years, our board and then our full membership voted to expand our service area to include the nearly all of Chicago's north side, including the area where this project would be located. In 2000, or in about a few months ago, as the Alderman said, we began a dialogue with Alderman Osterman regarding bringing an affordable rental development for families to the 48th Ward on this ward site. And, you know, one of the things that he talked about was some of the same things that we have seen over the years in our community, in the communities on the near Northwest side, which is prices soaring. A lot of what's being developed are smaller studio and one-bedroom units, not for families, and people feeling increasingly squeezed in their neighborhoods. And so, you know, the project that we're proposing is not unlike many of the developments that we would do, and not unlike our Emmett Street development, although every project is distinct, and we like to think that we take the best of all of our projects and pour it into the next one, as we would do with this project. And so this project, as the Alderman said, would occur in the Ward Yard at 5853 North Broadway. As proposed, we have 54 residential affordable family apartments in a 12-story building as currently contemplated. That would include, and by the way, it sort of jumped between 12 and 13, so we all know what we're talking about. As currently proposed, and I will tell you, having been in affordable housing development for a long time, you know, projects change back and forth with size and bedrooms and so on and so forth. And so, but as currently proposed, we have 33 one-bedrooms, 36 two-bedrooms, and 35 three-bedroom apartments. And the apartment distribution is really based on our experience regarding the demand in the neighborhoods that we've worked in for family housing and just housing in general, and where the demand is. And we look at our wait lists, we look at, you know, the absorption of, you know, how quickly we rent our units for which bedroom sizes. And that's how we've proposed. And I will tell you, Alderman Osterman has been really clear with us about, you know, trying to fit in as many large three-bedroom apartments as possible. This project, I'm delighted to say, actually, and I usually start out with this, but is an equitable transit-oriented development. And as you know, it runs right along the red line, and it is equitable because it's 100% affordable. Oftentimes, transit-oriented development projects, and there are many in Chicago, they are not affordable. And as a matter of fact, Emmett Street Apartments was the first family-based affordable housing development that was at a transit node, and we're delighted to be proposing another. The units would be targeted toward families at 50% to 60% area median income, and you probably are like, what the heck does that mean? And because who knows that off the tip of their tongue. And basically, if you look at the schedule below, and you look at 50% AMI, and usually we talk about families of 4 or households of 4. And so 50% of area median income for 4 people or a family of 4 is 46,600. And 60% area median income is 55,920. And so, we try to make it as affordable as possible. And these are the maximum gross rents allowable by as expressed by the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And you can see based on the income targeting of 50% to 60% of area median income, where those rents might fall. Now, I have to tell you, when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, you're including that? Because our rents are actually a lot lower than this, because we strive to not get the maximum revenue we can from a project. It's important that the revenue that the project can support itself, or that the development can support itself on the operating side. But we try to underwrite a project with our rents at a way more affordable level. And I'll tell you that our 1-bedrooms will be more in the neighborhood of 810 to 925, 2-bedroom 972 to nearly 1,200, 3 bedrooms at about 1125 to almost 1,300. And so you can see that that's a little bit different than what's here. And so we try, as much as possible to keep our rents as affordable as possible, while making sure that it can continue to support the development. And since this is just a beginning and not an end, we know that there'll be many more meetings. And as a matter of fact, I look forward to talking to many of you. And even those 89 of you, I know that I hope to see all of you at some point during the life of developing this. And we'll have other community meetings with the aldermen. We also will be reaching out to individual groups to make, just to talk about the project more as time goes on. And so with that, I'll wrap it up and just say, thank you to Alderman Osterman. He is really an awesome chairman of the committee. He is also a great alderman. Thank you for being forward thinking on this project. And we really look forward to working with both you and the community.
Joy, thank you and welcome to our neighborhood. Look forward to partnering with you on this. Joy's going to hang around for questions with myself as we finish the agenda and get into the Q&A part. But the development along Broadway, I think, is not just the ward yard. It's not a start. It's not an end. It's a start. And I think that there are going to be other opportunities along Broadway. I think 100% affordable unit building is a cornerstone for our neighborhood that is important. But I think that there are going to be other sites with different developments that'll be mixed income, mixed use throughout the neighborhood. So one of the ones that we are going to talk about and begin the process to talk about is the CTA is currently embarking on, as we all know, the RPM project. And as part of that project, they acquired 3 sites right on the corner of Hollywood and Broadway, the middle of Broadway between Bryn Mawr and Hollywood, where the current temporary station is, which is a large site. And then directly east of the current CTA station on Bryn Mawr is a small site. These are 3 sites that are currently under CTA authority and are being used as construction sites for the RPM project. A number of years ago, we had an initial conversation about what's possible at these 3 sites. The smaller renderings you have in front of us shows you what at the time was contemplated. As part of a number of meetings that we're going to begin after the new year, we're going to get into the weeds a little bit more now about what we want to see in the future when the CTA is done. I don't want to wait until the project is done to start the conversation. I think we're going to use the energy and the momentum of what we've been doing in our community to really kind of get together and really talk about what's possible moving forward. So we're going to look at these 3 sites that are currently CTA parcels, and they will be part of the conversation about what we want to see there moving forward. So I want to shift gears and kind of, I want to wrap up and talk about how we want to meet together to really kind of talk about the future and these sites, but a number of other issues. And I think that it's my goal that in the new year and January, which is a couple weeks away, that we're going to have an initial town hall meeting in person. And we hope to wrap up a date, but it'll be mid-January, the 2nd or 3rd week of January on a Saturday. We're contemplating a large location like the Armory or St. Andrews or St. Edith's, where we can all gather together safely. These meetings will be both hybrid, that we will be meeting in person, as well as visually, as we're doing with Zoom. But the goal of this is to really kind of talk about a number of things. One is to get in and answer more specifics about the Bickerdike and Ward Yard proposal, begin the conversation about what we want to see at the CTA sites. But we're also going to talk about the physical space of Broadway from Devon to Foster, the roadway, the traffic that flows through our community, placemaking that could be possible. So the physical space that's there and what we want to see now and into the future. Additionally, what we're going to do, and we're going to have representatives for that conversation from IDOT, CDOT, from the city of Chicago to really help us. There's been a lot of work that's been done to date looking at the northern terminus, but we're going to kind of show that to everyone and get feedback about how we want to move forward. Additionally, we're going to look at the economic development and commercial development opportunities along Broadway and build upon the work that we've done. So we're going to have the Chamber of Commerce and the city of Chicago there to really look at the, what's possible along Broadway from a business perspective. We want to grow businesses, specifically small independent owned businesses along Broadway, and really continue the momentum that has been built there. And then we're going to talk about what's possible with the other opportunities along Broadway that may come, as far as the pedestrian experience along Broadway and what we can do to continue to slow cars down as they come through our neighborhood. I cannot build a wall at Devon. The cars are going to have to get to Lakeshore Drive some way. So how do we get them to come through our neighborhood on our terms that are safe for everyone? And really kind of create a vibrant Main Street that we want to see in our community. So our goal is to have an initial meeting along in mid-January to really kind of talk about what's possible. There'll be a lot of tables that will be set up to really kind of get all of your feedback. Some of you have been part of previous meetings we've had on some of these issues. We are going to then have a second meeting in February, taking all of the feedback that we've gotten from everyone from the first meeting to really kind of then bring in some experts in different fields, whether it's transportation, housing, economic development, to really kind of help inform our decision about what's possible moving forward. And then ultimately, we're going to meet again in March to really kind of draft out, what we think is a possible vision for the future. And I think it's important for me that this is not going to be etched in stone. It's going to be a living, breathing thing, but it's a framework and a sense of values and priorities about what we as a community want now moving into the future. There are a lot of opportunities. There will be development that comes to our neighborhood, but really getting a sense from neighbors about what we want to see for our neighborhood and for the future of our neighborhood is going to be what we're going to do. And the goal would be at the outcome of this meeting is to have a consensus on kind of the path forward, and then ultimately to begin to pull the trigger on a lot of these things to make sure that we're getting it done, and the funding that is needed to be acquired, the planning, the conversation all happens. So some of these issues that we're going to talk about, like the CTA parcels and the issues with the roadway, for jurisdictional reasons, these are going to be conversations that will extend beyond March, but I think it's important to kind of use our time to really kind of lay the foundation for what the future looks like in our community. When the RPM project is done, I think, that's going to, I think, set a path for the future. So I think the timing to do this is right, and the timing to really hear from every voice in the neighborhood. We will have translators at these meetings moving forward. When we gather together, we will have representatives from all the different entities in state, city, federal government that will be there. And then we'll really try to get as many voices as possible. The other thing that I'll say is that, we'll be meeting with the block clubs and schools and other organizations kind of in the middle to kind of talk and get feedback. But I really want to say tonight that, these are positive developments, and how we work together and really craft out the future. I think there's a lot of positive opportunity to help our community now and in the future, but also families that can stay here and live here and enjoy a great neighborhood. So with that, if people want to raise their hand in the raise their hand function, Joy and myself will do our level best to answer as many questions we can between now and 8 o'clock. Some of these things, I would ask you also to keep it focused on the stuff we talked about tonight. So potholes, Clark Street bike lane, rats, if we could hold that for a different day, I would appreciate that, and keeping in the spirit of community. So Alan will call everyone's name out, and if you can also be respectful of everyone else's time, we want to get to as many people as possible today.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to go in the in the order that people raise their hands. So if you don't see the raise your hand function is at the bottom of your screen. If you're on your phone, you can just double tap in. There should be a bar coming out at the bottom of your screen, and then you can just click the raise your hand function. So I will start off with Sue, and I will unmute you.
Sorry about that. I'm Sue Garice. I'm with One North Side. I'm just very appreciative of being here tonight with 90 people talking about the potential for a 100% affordable building. It's very exciting. We do need more housing that is and stays truly affordable to our neighbors who are at the very lowest income level. So my question is, how can we get more of those kinds of units, either in the ward yard or in any future developments under discussion?
So I think a couple things. One is, I think you're gonna see this with the Bickerdike development and it being 100% affordable. I would say that this is the first 100% affordable building in our community in probably 40 or 50 years, going to probably CHA's scattered site. I would say that this one building is not the only answer. So I think when we look at the CTA parcels, I think that there will be affordability built into that. Any new developments that come to our neighborhood, we continue to advocate for affordable units in those buildings, and that goes through our zoning process. So those of you that have been a part of that process, I think you'll continue to see that. And then the last thing is looking at other ways with SRO preservation that we're working with One North Side. And I think that the city of Chicago is going to have some announcements coming out after the new year about that. So I think all of these coupled together, I think the goal is to preserve and look for opportunities throughout the neighborhood, not just on Broadway, but Clark Street as well. But we're looking for all those opportunities to really kind of take advantage of what's within the ward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Next up is Vino. You can unmute yourself now.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alderman Osterman. This has been a really great presentation. This is something I know that I've been actively pushing for well over a year now. So we're very delighted to see this moving forward. And I would like to also echo Sue's, I guess, interest in having also just 100% or fully supported units as well, not, just affordable, but also like, full voucher apartments as well. I would love to see more of that also. And I'm just kind of curious, I guess this is sort of for Ms. Arguete or Joy. Yes, so does Bickerdike, do I understand you're buying the land from the city, and then so you own the land and the building, and then you'll be sort of the property manager / landlord going forward? Is that how it goes with your, okay. And that's how it goes with your other projects and with this one as well?
Yeah, and the reason we think we're pretty good at property management, and we like to self-manage our properties because we want to have them managed in a way that allows residents to have a voice in how their housing is managed. We typically have organizers or resident tenant organizers that work with residents in each of our buildings on a whole array of family life issues in the building, or events, and getting people plugged into the fabric of the neighborhood. Also, with respect to just to add to what the alderman said on affordability, we'll make every effort to sort of bring either additional resources to help write down a portion of the rents, or to make at least a portion of the units more affordable. So there are certain programs, and I'm not saying that there's funding available, but the Chicago Low Income Housing Trust Fund, we have brought that into some of our developments to make a portion of the units in those developments more affordable. And so we would make every effort to bring greater affordability to a percentage of the units, or even all the units if we could.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Vino. Next up is Suzanne. You can unmute yourself now. I think you should be all set.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Alderman and to Ms. Argueta for this presentation. This is very exciting. So as you may know, One Northside is part of the Chicago Housing Initiative Coalition, and another member of the coalition is Access Living. And so I'm curious, in this proposed development, what are you thinking about in terms of accessibility of the units?
So that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. This will be an elevator building, and there absolutely will be a percentage of fully accessible and a percentage of adaptable units in the development. So that both because it's a state requirement, but also because it's a good practice, and something that we've done in all of our developments.
I'd also like to follow up about the accessibility. I think that is an issue that we're looking at both locally and citywide, to try to really make sure that we're taking advantage of opportunities for accessible living. So I think that's something we could meet with Access Living and you and One Northside to talk about opportunities with that moving forward, because I think trying to create ground floor accessible units throughout our neighborhood, but also the city, I think there's a lot of opportunity. Commercial as we know it, as much as I want to bring great little storefronts to all of our vacant storefronts in our community, the commercial world we live in is different than it has been in the past. And I think there's lots of opportunities to try to find some unique accessible units where there once was commercial, that will blend in, add people to the neighborhood in a safe way. So that's something that I think we're really looking locally, but also around the city to expand. Want to say that there will be parking for a small, there will be some cars, probably 35 parking spaces. I know that's going to come up. And we want to make sure that this is an environmentally friendly building. So that is, I'm queuing up Renee because I know that that's going to.
Thank you, Suzanne. I will ask to unmute. Renee, you're up next.
Hey everyone, good to see so many of you, and thank you for queuing me up on the green buildings. And this is just so great, so excited, Joy, for you to bring this to the neighborhood and all the work that so many people on this call have done to make this a reality. So I wanted to ask about any plans or philosophy around energy efficiency and green buildings. We just need to prepare for that because the city of Chicago is updating their climate action plan in the beginning of 2022, and we need to decarbonize all of our buildings, and the city has a commitment to completely electrify or renewable energy in buildings by 2035. So we don't have too many years left for that. So Joy, if you could speak to anything you're already planning for or anything your company does already for that, and Alderman, if you have any thoughts about what you're prioritizing for energy efficiency and sustainability.
I would be happy to start. We have taken great measures to incorporate sustainability into not only the physical environment in our buildings, but also in our practices. And so we have one building that's a Gold LEED certified building that has all the bells and whistles that helped us to really look at what were the most sensible things for reducing our carbon footprint and to put into an operating residential building. And so, you know, we have many strategies, everything from, you know, high efficiency heating and cooling, and I'm going to talk about electrification in just a minute, to using, you know, solar heating, to you know, low VOC paints and adhesives, to you know, Energy Star appliances. And I know I'm forgetting about a zillion things because we, you know, we started out thinking these were good construction practices, but really we are intentionally designing our buildings to be more green. I know our architects are also on the call, and I'm sure that they could rattle off a million things as well. What I will say is this: we have a lot of experience. We are right now have the privilege of working with Elevate Energy to take one of our vintage properties and convert 3 buildings to 100% electric. And so that electrification project, I think, is really teaching us a lot. We are certainly always thinking about how to green and bring environmental sustainability, not just, you know, what we've come to incorporate as sort of good design, but also what are the new strategies that should be represented in a next project. And so I don't take electrification off the table in any project from here forward.
I'll just add to that and say that any of the buildings that we are going to be added to our community, we want to make them environmentally friendly. I think that this is going to be, as Joyce said, an ETOD building. The CTA sites, other developments along Broadway and Clark Street, I think you're going to see less parking and less reliance on parking. I think part of the significant importance to the RPM project in our neighborhood is that it's going to reduce the travel time for people to work downtown and take the CTA train. So I think that once that project is done, you're going to see a lot more people leaving the car in the garage or not having a car and taking public transportation again. So I think that we're in the middle of a pandemic still. There's a concern about CTA ridership, but I think when we look ahead to the years ahead, that's going to change. We're also building a new metro station. That's going to be completed as well in 2 years. So we in Edgewater are going to be kind of sandwiched between a brand new metro station, a number of brand new CTA stations. So we are going to be in a very good spot when it comes to easy access to public transportation. The other thing is, I think I'm going to be looking with some of my colleagues to try to expand electric cars, electric docking stations beyond just the private ones that are around. So that's something that we're going to work on moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Renee, for your question. Scott Peterson, I'm going to ask to unmute you, and you're up next.
Hi, thanks. This is a really exciting project. was actually kind of curious about the lot just south of the one that's being discussed at the city ward, the disused fire station. Is there going to be any redevelopment along that property, or is that going to be incorporated into this new development?
The site that's just south of the Ward Yard on Broadway. So I think that, I'll try to answer it this way. There are two developments on either side of the current Ward Yard on Broadway. One is an apartment building on the north side of the building, and one is a commercial building. It's a warehouse on the south side. We will be in conversations with both to let them know about the development and see if there are any opportunities. At the present time, though, I would say that this is solely focused on the Ward Yard site. But we will be looking at those opportunities, but I think there will not be eminent domain or anything like that. There'll be conversations. If things change, we'll bring that back. But I think both of those are used. One is housing and one is a very used commercial warehouse for a grocer along our.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott, for your question. Rohini, I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Hi, good afternoon or good evening, sorry. Thank you so much. It's really exciting to hear about this project. I'm really glad to hear that there's going to be family size units. It's something as a parent that I care a lot about. So it's really exciting that there are going to be several in this building. I just wanted to echo too, just the interest in seeing where possible to provide units for extremely low income families. I wanted to just ask one question about the other CTA sites that you said were coming up. How does that process work? Are we, if the city is looking for money, but those are, probably properties where other affordable housing developers could also participate and bid on, is there a way to do an RFP where you can specifically request, even if the sale price is lower, for affordable housing developers to buy that land?
So I think first, Rohini, thanks for being on the call and appreciate your work with Pierce families. And I know we've got a meeting coming up to talk about affordable options. I think the CTA parcels are controlled and owned by the CTA. I think that part of what we want to use the meetings for into the next year and beyond is to really kind of on a community basis look and see what we want there, what we envision for each of those parcels. And there's three, so there's different, but really to kind of come up with a plan on the community side along with the CTA. Once we crystallize what a plan would be, I think then there's opportunity to kind of take it out to people. And I would say that that's a different way than is usually done. Usually a developer goes to an entity and then we as a community are reacting to what they are doing. And what I am envisioning and what I'm going to push for is that it's the other way around. The community crystallizes around what we want to see and what we want to see for the future. And then we go shopping for and looking for the right people to help crystallize and get to that vision. I think in the case of Bickerdike and the Ward Yard, I think we've got a great partner. But I think once we've, as a community, had the conversation about the CTA, we'll see who the right people are and then work through the government processes to kind of get that. But it's important to also say that those sites are going to be occupied for the next couple of years because we still got to build the CTA stations. But I think it's important to get started now.
Thank you, Rohini. Up next, I have Dave. Dave, I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Great, thank you. I just, first of all, wanted to echo kind of a lot of what everyone said here. This is sorely needed. I am the chair on the Swift Local School Council, so literally adjacent to this, and this sort of development is needed, necessary, and our families need it. So I think it goes kind of interesting to say that, 120 units over 10 years, a single building could bring us to 200. I guess what I'm getting at is like, I want to see more of this. I want to see more of this. I'm glad we're getting our foot in the door here, or hopefully getting our foot in the door here. And I just hope we can build on this. My question along that vein is what, and this is for whoever, what is the best case timeline for this?
I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Joy. But I think the best case timeline is it's going to take about a year to go through what I will call are the negotiated sale processes, the zoning processes, the financing processes, to really get the project in a place where it needs to be. And I would say that that's with the full weight of my office and me pushing feverishly to get it done as quickly as possible in a way that follows all the right appropriate ways to do things. I think after that, it will take a significant amount of time, probably a year to 18 months to build. And I don't know if Joy's kicking me on that one, but so this is something that is not going to happen overnight, but I think is something that, even in the best case scenario, there's going to be a bit of time to take this, but we're pushing hard. And I think the key thing is getting as many community voices together to support this. And I'll say this tonight, having everyone on board and is something I would really ask from all of you and the people that you talk to within our community.
Hear, hear. I agree.
Thank you, Dave. Joel, you're up next. I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Hello, Joy. My name is Joel. I'm a huge fan of the work that you did in Logan Square, and I'm really glad that you're coming to the best neighborhood on the north side. I really hope that this project is the first of many around here because we really need it. I would like to voice the obvious, which is that there's a ton of people on this call with community organizing groups like 40th Ward Neighbors and One North Side and Edgewater Environmental Coalition, and probably a lot more who are hyper involved in the community, love this presentation and want to help. So my question for both of you, Alderman Osterman and Joy, what can we do to help make sure that this project happens as close to the vision that you articulated tonight as possible?
Well, the first thing is to join us tonight, which you're doing. The second thing would be to come to the meetings that we're going to have in January, February, and March to really and talk to people about what they want to see now and into the future. I think that there will be points in time throughout where we'll have community meetings, but I think really trying to get people to talk about this, the benefit of why we should do this, I think is the key thing to do.
Yeah, I want to echo that and just say, we know that there'll be a lot of community education that's needed, and a lot of people will have a lot of questions, which we want to make sure get answered. Just to go back to the previous question, these projects, this isn't a really, as the Alderman said, if we push really hard, what we can expect. But affordable housing can take a long time, and there can be a lot of bumps in the road to getting an affordable housing development done. And, I've seen it take longer than that. I've seen it take 2 years of pre-development, sometimes even longer than that. And that's when you've really got a great alderman like we have here, and and a lot of support for the project. And there are many, many levels of approval that will be needed and will go to many city processes. And I think coming out to support the project at each of those steps will be really important. And then most importantly, I can tell you one thing that I always have to tell myself: never lose the faith. No matter how long it takes, don't lose the faith, right? Because one thing for sure, when it's the right thing to do, it might not be easy, but it's worth every moment of time that it takes to get it done.
I'll also, if I might add another point to that, is that, this is historic for our neighborhood, but other communities will be watching how we as a community address this, and really leading in a unifying way together to say we want diverse, affordable housing in the city of Chicago, and it's a human right, is critical. So I think I want to really build support from everyone. We'll answer every question, we'll hear every feedback, but this is important, not just for our neighborhood, but it's also important to show other communities that, this is what can be done if people put their minds together and work together.
Thank you, Joel. Next up, I have Steve. I'm going to ask to unmute you, Steve.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Alderman Osterman, for beginning the community process. As a longtime Edgewater resident and member of various groups, I have to say to those who are new to our neighborhood that we have a long history of supporting affordable housing in Edgewater, and we have a great deal of affordable housing currently. Probably not enough of housing that supports families, however. I have, most of my questions would be for Joy. So I'll just read them off and then you can answer them if you can. One, I would like to know if you know what your sources of financing are, and if you have firm commitments for that financing. Second would be, how are you going to ensure that this housing is indeed for Edgewater residents as it's being built? Will you have site-based waiting lists and priority for our low-income residents? You've already answered the time frame, and I know from my own experience that it does take a long time, often. This facility is being proposed right next to this great indoor park, and which the citizens of Edgewater fought very hard to make a park. I'm wondering if you have had any discussions with the Park District on how they can be a part of this and be supportive of these families with children who will be moving into this building. I think that would be essential. The last point, and it's something that I think you need to be aware of, and you probably are as a developer, and that is the need to do a careful environmental assessment on this site, which has been used basically as an industrial property for many years. So I'm sure there will be need for mitigation of various kinds. And again, for all those who are new to this, that can take time. So I think those are my questions, Joy.
Okay, well, let me see if I can't take them one by one. Regarding the sources of financing, we are at the very early stage. We have some idea about what those sources will be. None of them are committed, as the Alderman said. TIF would likely be one of them. We would likely use low-income housing tax credits, whether or not they're 9%, 4%, that's still to be determined. And so we are committed to advancing this project at the quickest pace we can. And I can tell you that, financing is one of the paramount things that we'll be working on, because it's what gets the project closed and started with construction. So with respect to ensuring that Edgewater residents are the beneficiaries, what we've done a lot of work on, community preference and whether or not we can do a site-based wait list. And I have to tell you that because of fair housing, this is a really hard question. You know, we have really tried to, you know, make this focus in our own, you know, previous developments. And here's what I can tell you. We have a lot of local residents that have ties to the community that have moved into the residential properties that we own now. And the reason that we've been able to identify them is because we have really tried to keep our marketing local. Now, we have to fulfill fair housing and fair marketing requirements, but we also know that we can do that extra, you know, that extra marketing push at the local level. And we have a really strong history and track record of doing it. And when that, actually going back to that question about what can we do, that's one of the things that when we get to that stage, which I assure you we'll all feel like, woo, by the time we get there, but that's when the really hard work starts to market the units locally. And so we'll be asking for help when we get to that point. And then with, you know, we want to make sure that residents have access and can take full advantage of amenities. We have not yet had a conversation, the alderman may have, with the Chicago Park District, but that doesn't mean that we won't. We have a good history and track record of collaborating with, you know, all of the city agencies, number one, that it takes to get a project done, but just in general to, you know, make sure that people have access to and utilize the local resources and amenities that are available to them. And, you know, could there be environmental problems on the site? I'll let the alderman answer that, but what I will say is this is Chicago. I mean, we have found entire buildings imploded beneath, you know, soil when we start to excavate. I mean, we have found crazy stuff. We found contaminated soil. We've had to do containment. We've had to do mitigation. We're not afraid of it. We have experience.
I'll echo that about the construction. You know, we're still, what's coming out of the CTA is kind of unusual. So, but I think I'll just say this one thing to echo, and that's about the Armory, right? The Broadway Armory is our community center. It's a place that the community has worked very hard to expand programs. I really look at this building and families will be able to use the Armory and vice versa. I look at families from Swift School that will walk past the Armory, go to Swift School, go to after school programs at the Armory after school. So this is part of the fabric, and there'll be great integration. And I think we'll have more to talk about on that front at our meeting in January. So thank you, Steve. We're going to go to Emily, and then I want to be mindful of the time. And I think looking at the future speakers, Denise is a little bit down the chain, but if we could be mindful of the time, because we want to wrap up a little around 8 o'clock, but we'll, for the folks that have their hands raised now, would kind of like to respect that. And then again, this will be an initial meeting. People can email us and we can get into some of the further conversation that way. But
awesome. Thank you, Steve. Emily, I'm going to ask to unmute you right now.
Hi, thanks all. Just to echo what everyone said, I am also incredibly excited, not just for what this means for our community, but also for the city at large. I just generally was really excited to see all the potential developments coming up from a week or so ago with all the developments coming up. So it's very exciting. I work in housing case management as a social worker, so I've got a lot of questions. I think the two top of mind right now are, one, what is the kind of selection criteria going to look like almost? I know earlier this year, 700 people applied for 75 affordable units in Jefferson Park, and I have to imagine numbers are going to look similar here. So I'd be interested to see how that'll look. And then two, I'm wondering if there's going to be any kind of support or leniency with tenants, especially, you know, I know you mentioned earlier, Joy, the low income tax credit, housing tax credits, those applications are like 70 pages and a kind of a pain to go through, even if you're sitting quietly in an office doing them by yourself. So I'm just curious that I know these are, thank you.
Thanks. No, those are great questions. And so every developer has to do a tenant selection plan. And so we'll be creating and advancing a tenant selection plan. And, our selection criteria is similar for developments that we do. I can tell you that, we're in the business of housing people, not rejecting them. That doesn't mean that nobody will ever get turned down for housing, but we try to, as much as possible, only look at the things that we think are really relevant to their housing tenancy. And so, we do look at credit information, but we only really look at housing related debt and their ability to put utilities in their name and things of that nature. But we don't look at their credit score. I don't care what their credit score is. I don't, things like that. And so, like I said, we're in the business of housing people and not in rejecting them. So, and then with regard to, the support that tenants have, and I want to make sure I'm remembering it correctly because I'm looking down here. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've only already after that. We, like I said, we have we don't have case workers. We know that there are many people who do, social work, casework, resident support really well. And so we do have tenant organizers, and those organizers make it their business to really know a community and to know what are the resources in a community and to make sure that we work with those organizations that have those resources to, assist people in whatever way that they may need. With respect, okay, I remember your question was on the application. And so we do, our property managers and leasing and occupancy staff, they sit down no matter how long it takes with a resident, with an applicant, and they assist them in filling that out. Actually, everyone should be doing that, but we help them, up until the stage where they're signing everything right in front of us. And so it is a long process because we're required to send out all kinds of verifications. Those are IRS and HUD rules, and we have to comply with them. One thing about the affordable housing world, it's full of compliance, and so you don't want anybody who doesn't really understand it to be managing it because you might get yourself in trouble. But we know, and we do provide assistance with each resident applicant.
And I'll also echo, if I could, that, we're going to market this to residents who live within our community. I think that, part of the goal is to create affordable housing everywhere across the city, but I think this development has come about as a specific need within our neighborhood. So I think we're going to try to focus on making sure local residents are aware of the application process when it starts. It's a little bit off, but we'll try to make sure that there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of conversation, a lot of awareness leading up to it and support as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Up next is Corey. I'm going to ask to unmute you right now as well.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? So I've had the privilege of living in the neighborhood for 23 years and working for nonprofits that support housing programs and social services. And this might be a question for Joy or for the alderman. And thank you all for this meeting tonight. I guess my question is, I'm familiar with the supportive housing services model where there might be subsidized housing and people with needs beyond merely housing. And I'm wondering if there's some information you would share with residents, owners, and renters in the neighborhood around supportive services and social services. The pandemic dealt such a blow to accessibility of services, and we even had critical shelter services at the Broadway Armory during lockdown that we really needed, but we saw a really increased need of challenges and issues. And I'm wondering how we are talking with neighbors and residents about this huge influx of affordable housing and what we can do to make sure that residents would have what they need, if in fact there's any correlation, I don't know if that's true, between affordable housing and the need for supportive services. So thanks for your information on that.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. And we don't exercise a supportive housing model, but we do know how to make sure that residents have access to support and assistance. And, you know, during the pandemic, we've worked very closely, not just with our own residents, but residents in the community, and everything from helping people apply for rental assistance, helping refer people to organizations that could provide services that they needed. And pre-pandemic, you know, we have a really strong track record of connecting with mental health organizations to provide everything from proactive, you know, discussions about mental health and access to mental health services when they need them, to, you know, how to, you know, access food assistance. Right now we have a food resiliency program that we've been running in one of our developments. We were very lucky to get a very generous grant to do a food resiliency program. Residents who live in that development are getting food assistance every month. And everything from, you know, to plugging youth into activities and, you know, positive presence, to working on public safety activities with, you know, organizations that are working on it, but just, you know, positive presence on the streets. We have 2 community gardens. We use gardening. We use every strategy that makes sense to use in a neighborhood that we're developing. So, you know, and we don't come in as sort of a lone insular, hey, we're just going to build a house, you know, building and we're going to be there. No, we want to be a part of the neighborhood. We want the residents that live there to be a part of the neighborhood. And that's, I mean, that's when I say community engagement is our model, that's what I mean.
I appreciate the question also, and I think that you know, this one development's not going to address every issue, and I think that the pandemic has really shown the mental health needs and really trying to make sure that it's accessible to people. The city budget we just passed puts a lot more money towards mental health services. My staff today met with Thresholds, which is going to be embarking on a new initiative, crisis intervention 24/7. In January, there'll be more information coming out about that to really support people. Mercy Housing in the Uptown area has got some supportive housing developments. They're going through a renovation to try to improve that. And then we've got a couple shelters within our community that I'm working to preserve at Epworth Church specifically, where tonight, as we're speaking here, there are men that are, you know, getting ready for the night ahead inside of a sheltered place. So we're trying to look at it holistically to really make sure that we're addressing all the needs, and where there are gaps, we're looking to fill them. So that's something else that, you know, we're going to continue to partner on.
Thank you, Corey. Up next, I have Nicole. Nicole, I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Hi. Hi, Alderman Osterman and Joy. Thank you both so much for the presentation. I am a lifelong resident of the area and the mom of a Pierce student. I'm also a homeowner, and I just want to voice my support for what we're hearing tonight about the Bickerdike Ward Yard project. I'm excited about this conversation about the building, and especially the focus on family units. As the mom of a young child, we're seeing families leave our school every year due to the lack of affordability. And some of those families have been in our community for generations, like mine has. Sometimes it seems, so my question is, sometimes it seems like we're taking this work of affordable housing kind of one project at a time. And I was wondering, Alderman Osterman, if you could speak to like the bigger picture. Is there like a larger strategy about affordable housing, a plan, a goal? You know, maybe a goal for the number of units per year that we want to add that are affordable. I was wondering if you could just kind of speak to that bigger picture.
The goal, you know, I would like to see a couple hundred units of affordable housing as quickly as possible. And I think when we look at the developments that we're talking about tonight, both the Bickerdike development, the VAI development, the opportunity along Broadway with the CTA parcels, as well as other new, I'll call them market rate developments that are going to be required, I'm going to look to add as many units as possible. I think the one thing that I have to do is be realistic, though, right? And that is that the opportunity before us with the Ward Yard is a unique one. The opportunity with the CTA yards is a unique one. The city does not have access to a lot of these physical spaces. What we do have access to is funding from the city, which right now towards housing has been robust. We've got a president who values affordable housing in HUD, that values affordable housing. I was with the secretary of HUD not too long ago in Pilsen. So trying to take advantage of all of the funding resources, including the state of Illinois, to bring to bear is what I want to do. And be creative and look for different opportunities. But we're also landlocked. We've got Lake Michigan, we've got Rogers Park, and we got Clark Street in Uptown. So it's looking for the opportunities where they are and trying to maximize them to benefit our community and to benefit the families of our neighbors. So I'm open to new ideas. I'm open to suggestions, but I think we've got a robust agenda moving forward. And with everyone's support and everyone's input and ideas, I think we can really get as many units as possible and do so in a way that's beneficial to many people in our community. And also, I think, showcase what we can do when people work together.
Thank you, Nicole. Up next, I have Marjorie. Marjorie, I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Yeah.
We can hear you now.
Okay, Alan, you know what? I will let it go to the next person. I'll save my question. Let it go to the next person.
Awesome. All right. Up next is Mark. I'm going to ask to unmute you right now, Mark.
Hello, can you hear us? This is Mark and Carmen Vidal-Hallett. We are neighbors of this area for 23 years and have worked with the alderman and the Edgewater Sustainability Project for several years now. And so we're very excited to see Bickerdike, an amazing development company, and to see all the affordable units and the sustainability is all great. Our question, or my question specifically, because Mark has another one, is related to the design itself and how, for example, can we include work-leave units? Those are units that I'm sure Bickerdike is familiar with it, and are units that have like the first floor as a business and the second floor, or the ground floor as a business and the first floor as the affordable units for small businesses in the neighborhood. And also with that, how are we developing Broadway in a sustainable way? And there's a lot more people that are going to come to the neighborhood. Can we create islands that you can cross Broadway in a safer way and provide refugee areas as well as more landscaping? We know it is a IDET route from Foster North, but can we start that conversation with them to create a much more pleasant Broadway street like other streets in the Chicago area?
So Mark, you want to ask your question too?
Sure. I don't want us to take over. Joy and Harry and everyone here, thank you so much. We're big fans of more affordable housing. The neighborhood has hemorrhaged Black and Latino, especially low-income families. With regards not to this project, but to Broadway with an eye toward the future, we're really interested also in whether or not historical preservation is being taken into account. We know that, and don't speak for them, but the Edgewater Historical Society has come up with a really creative plan to make sure that storefronts that are historic are kept. We all deserve and hope for, and many of us move to Edgewater, not only for its diversity, but also for the wonderful flavor and history that the neighborhood has. I know it's cliche, but the greenest building is the one that's standing. So we'd love your comments. Thank you.
Joy, let me answer some of that and then I'll turn it over to you. And I think Carmen and Mark, I think also are neighbors of mine, and I've watched their kids grow up and they've watched my kids grow up, and I want to have their children have the ability to live within our community and stay here forever. So I think part of this is not just an exercise in building units, it's an exercise in helping families and different generations of Edgewater residents stay here and enjoy the beautiful community where they grow up in. So our goal is to, and that's kind of at the core of what we're trying to do. When it comes to Broadway, I'm not sure if you hopped on the call late, but part of the conversations that we're going to embark upon in January, February, and March is to look at the physical space of Broadway, the roadway, specifically the sidewalk lanes. There's different approaches that CDOT has put forth that we're going to look at in depth. Some of those would include refuse islands, so those that want to cross Broadway can do so safely. So we're going to look at all of that in depth and in detail after the new year and welcome everyone's feedback. Broadway is an IDOT road, and so part of what we have to do is to, if we come up with some consensus, work with IDOT. IDOT has been very favorable of late, working with the city. We're looking at some options with Ridge Avenue with IDOT in a constructive way. So I think that under the governor's leadership, it's a different mindset, but we're going to look at all of these issues as we get into the new year, and we'll love to have you be a part of that, if not at the meeting across the Norwood Street. So with that, Joy, if you want to talk about the live workspace, and I'll just touch on that one part real quick, is I think beyond this building, looking at vacant storefronts that where we have in our community and elsewhere that have not been not had a tenant for decades, those to me are live workspace opportunities in our community and elsewhere. So I think we're going to continue to work on that. But Joy.
Thanks for asking that. We don't currently have any live workspace units planned in this particular development. But I think, I support opportunities to develop them when they can be developed. And but it's not contemplated right now in this project. I do want to say that it might seem like it's just one development and it's just one effort, but having worked for the last 26 years in, a handful of communities on the near northwest side, it's one development at a time that really makes a huge difference. And in a lot of the areas where people can't afford to live anymore, where we've been developing, it really is because we've been doing this one building at a time, one development at a time, that there is a really nice, stable stock of housing that people can rely on in the neighborhood. So, and, we're a not-for-profit, we're not going anywhere. And, anything that we develop, we plan to own, forever and keep it affordable forever. So stop there.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark and Carmen. As we get to the last person, Denise, I've been monitoring some of the questions and comments, and I just wanted to let you all know that we will follow up. As the alderman said, we try to get to everyone by moderating the raised hands, and so we'll try to follow up after the meeting via email with everyone that put questions in the chat, and then anyone else that has questions moving forward, they can just email harry@48thward.org, and we'll follow up with any questions or responses on that. So next up is Denise. I will ask to unmute you.
Hello, everyone. And it's so nice to meet you, Mr. Olstein. I must agree that Edgewater is a great place to live. I raised my two daughters. Both of them went to Gowdy School, and one of them went to Lane Tech. And this is a great community. And I was able to stay in the Edgewater area for 15 years. Then unfortunately, I had to move. And then now I'm back and I'm happy as ever. And it's still a great community to live in. I have a few questions. Number one is, will the unit have washers and dryers? Number two, will the unit be smoke-free? Number three, will the tenants be able to pay for their rent by credit card or PayPal? Thank you.
Okay, those are the questions where the rubber hits the road, right? And so the more than likely the apartments will not have washers and dryers in the apartment, but we'll have typically we put a laundry room either on each floor, and probably in a building of this size there'll be a laundry room on each floor, or a minimum on every other floor, to make sure that we have enough washers and dryers for residents to do the laundry right in the building. And all of our buildings are smoke-free. In 2019, we went 100% smoke-free in all of our housing, and it was a little bit of a process to get there. But I think that when we talk about, you know, sustainability and building healthy housing, you got to have smoke-free housing. So sorry to any smokers out there, but we have smoke-free housing. So, and then with regard to rent payment, it's interesting that you asked, because one of the things that we're working on right now is establishing electronic rent payment for residents that live in any building that we own. And so that would include ACH payments, as well as, you know, we're looking into credit card, debit card, and I'm also interested in Zelle and Venmo. So those are bridges that we're trying to cross right now to make sure that we stay current on what our practices, what our industry practices, and just what people enjoy in terms of how they, to bring convenience to people.
Denise, thank you for that question. I am glad you are back in Edgewater, and hopefully your kids will move back here too, and we'll have a space for them. But I want to end tonight just by thanking all of you for being a part of this. This has been the most community feeling Zoom meeting in a while. I hope to see all of us in person where we can talk more about this, but I really appreciate your feedback tonight and your partnership moving forward. I really want to thank Joy Argueta and her team at Bickerdike for partnering with our community to really take the first steps to build these units, and really appreciate her leadership to make that happen, and look forward to partnering with her and her team and our whole neighborhood to really make this development happen, but also look for what else is possible along Broadway with housing, commercial development, and really making Broadway the main street that we all want, that's safe and vibrant for all of us. So with that, we'll be putting out a schedule of the meetings probably early next week. Once we lock that in, I want all of you to have a safe holiday while, you know, till we see each other soon. But thank you for being here tonight. Look forward to the partnership for our neighborhood moving forward, and have a wonderful, peaceful holiday. Thank you very much. And thank Alan for moderating tonight, and my whole team, Dan Luna, Sarah Dingus, and everyone for getting this here tonight. So thank you all. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you very much soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.